The council
Hold still.
chamber
This will
existed only as
stabilize you.
light.
It burns, but I
Holographic
feel it
projections
working.
floated in the void
Hang
of
in.
space,
Hold still.
each one
This
a
will
face
stabilize you.
carved from
It
authority
burns,
and
but I
cold
feel it
judgment.
working.
Commander
Hang.
Lyra Voss stood at the center of that circle, her uniform pressed sharp, her spine straight, despite the weight pressing down on every breath. She had known this moment would come. For 5 years, she had filed reports questioning the Dominion's extermination protocols. For 5 years, those reports had vanished into silence. Now the silence had ended, and the council had finally answered. High Executive Valen's image dominated the chamber. His scales gleamed silver under artificial light, his eyes narrow and unblinking. When he spoke, his voice carried the texture of stone grinding against stone. Commander Voss, you stand accused of refusing a direct military order. Orbital strike authorization for Ashbourne Colony, Frontier 7, 18,000 human civilians. Confirmed insurgent presence. Extermination protocols approved by unanimous council vote. Lyra did not look away. She had learned long ago that fear showed first in the eyes. I acknowledge the order, Executor. I refuse to execute it. The chamber went silent. Not the silence of thought or consideration. The silence of a trap snapping shut. Valen leaned forward. Explain your refusal. Lyra's hands remained at her sides, steady. Ashbourne Colony's civilian population includes 3,000 children under the age of 10. Medical facilities, educational centers. The insurgent presence cited in the briefing consists of 12 individuals operating from a warehouse district 3 kilometers from residential zones. Precision strike capabilities exist. Collateral damage is not necessary. It is chosen. Necessity is not yours to determine, Commander. Then neither is my participation in mass murder. The words hung in the air like smoke. Around the circle, council members shifted, some with discomfort, others with cold satisfaction. Valen's expression did not change. Murder. You use that word to describe military action against an enemy species. Lyra met his gaze. I use that word to describe killing children who have done nothing but exist. Their existence is the threat. Humanity spreads like infection, uncontrolled, chaotic. Their colonies expand without permission. Their vessels ignore established boundaries. Their very nature destabilizes order. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried containment. What remains is eradication. What remains is genocide. Valen's eyes narrowed. You defend them. I defend the principles we claim to uphold. Honor, justice, proportional response. If we abandon those principles, we become the very chaos we claim to oppose. For a moment, something almost like respect flickered across Valen's face. Then it hardened into finality. Your principles are noted. Your refusal is recorded. Lieutenant Hale, execute secondary protocols. Lyra turned. Too late. Brennan Hale stood 10 meters behind her. The man she had trained personally. The officer she had recommended for commendation 3 times. The soldier who had once told her she was the finest commander he had ever served under. His sidearm was already drawn. Brennan. His hand did not waver. His face carried no emotion. You're a traitor to the Kessler Dominion, Commander. I'm sorry it had to be you. The first shot took her in the shoulder. The second missed as she dove, her body moving on instinct honed by 2 decades of combat training. The council chamber dissolved into emergency shutdown, holograms vanishing into darkness. Lyra ran, behind her, boots hammered against metal. Hale's voice echoed through the corridor, calm and procedural. Traitor in motion, Section 7, authorization to terminate. More footsteps, more voices, her own unit. Soldiers she had led through fire, now hunting her. She reached the escape pod bay, lungs burning. The pods lined the wall like sleeping bullets, each one designed for single-occupant emergency evacuation. Her fingers flew across the access panel. Codes she had memorized years ago, codes that should have worked. Red lights, access denied. Step away from the pod, Commander. Hale stood at the bay entrance, flanked by 4 soldiers. Their weapons trained, professional, no hesitation. Lyra's hand dropped to her own sidearm. Empty holster. They had known. They had planned this. How long? She asked quietly. Hale's expression remained neutral. 18 months. Every supply drop you rerouted to refugee camps. Every encrypted transmission to resistance contacts. Every report you filed questioning Dominion policy. I documented it all. 18 months. A year and a half of careful surveillance, of pretended loyalty, of waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You could have arrested me. Arrests require trials. Trials create martyrs. Executor Valen wanted you expunged from all records, not imprisoned, deleted from existence. Lyra looked at the soldiers, faces she knew, names she remembered. And you all agreed to this. None of them answered. That was answer enough. She moved fast, not toward them. Toward the manual release lever, hidden behind the access panel, a backup system for catastrophic hull breaches. Her fingers found it, pulled. The bay doors blew open. Atmosphere screamed into vacuum. Bodies flew backward, mag boots engaging too late. Lyra grabbed the nearest pod's exterior grip, held on as the hurricane tried to rip her away. Alarms shrieked. Emergency bulkheads began to close. She had seconds. She threw herself into the pod, slammed the hatch, hit launch. The pod fired like a bullet into the black. Behind her, the Dominion cruiser Valiant Justice grew smaller. Inside that ship, the Council would be watching, recording her trajectory, calculating her destination, sending hunters. The pod's systems flickered to life around her. Damaged. She realized it immediately. Hail had sabotaged more than the bay access. Life support showed yellow warnings. Navigation offline. Thrusters firing erratically. She was not escaping, she was falling. The pod bucked hard. Something in the engine assembly had torn loose. She fought the controls, trying to stabilize, but the trajectory was already locked. Gravity from the nearby planet caught her, pulled her down. Kerrigan 9, she recognized it from tactical briefings. Desert world, radiation storms, triple sun system that baked the surface into glass. Abandoned mining outposts. No permanent settlements, no rescue. The atmosphere hit like a wall. The pods shuddered, hull plating screaming. Heat built. Red warnings flooded the display. She strapped in tight, braced for impact. The desert rose up to meet her. The crash was not dramatic. No explosion, no fireball. Just a hard, grinding stop that threw her against the restraints, hard enough to crack ribs. The pod tore through sand and stone, tumbling, finally slamming to rest against something solid. Silence. Lyra hung in the straps, breathing shallow. Every inhale felt like knives. She ran a mental inventory. 3 ribs cracked on the right side, left femur showing a hairline fracture, painful but the bone was still aligned. Right shoulder partially dislocated, the joint grinding with each movement, blood running warm down her side from the gunshot wound. She was alive. For now. The pod's hatch refused to open, jammed. She kicked it once, twice. Pain exploded through her ribs. She screamed into her teeth, kicked again. The hatch blew outward. Heat rolled in, dry, intense. The kind of heat that pulled moisture from lungs and skin in seconds. Lyra dragged herself out, fell onto sand that burned even through her gloves. She looked up. 3 suns hung in an orange square. The sand around her was not normal sand. It was glass. Radiation storms had melted the surface over centuries, creating a landscape of sharp, glittering fragments that cut like razors. She tried to stand. Her left leg protested, but held weight when she braced it properly. The hairline fracture was stable for now. She could walk if she was careful. The shoulder was worse. She grabbed it with her left hand, and took a breath, and yanked hard. The joint popped back into socket with a wet sound. White light exploded behind her eyes. She bit down until she tasted copper, waited for the worst of the pain to fade. Behind her, the pod lay crumpled and smoking. Its beacon was dark, sabotaged like everything else. They had not just wanted her dead. They had wanted her removed from history, forgotten. Lyra began to walk. The glass sand cut through her boots within minutes. Blood mixed with the sand, turning it dark. She kept moving, not toward anything, just away. Away from the pod, away from the ship she knew would be tracking her descent, away from the death that was coming. Her mind drifted. 2 years ago, she had been stationed on a border world during pacification operations. The Dominion called them that. Pacification. Like the word made it clean. She had witnessed the aftermath. Human medics, carrying white flags, shot down as they tried to reach wounded civilians. Children screaming in burning buildings. Families separated, never to see each other again. One of her soldiers had asked her why the humans kept fighting, why they did not simply surrender. She had not had an answer then. Now walking through a desert that wanted her dead, she understood. Humans fought because surrender meant extinction, and some things were worth dying to preserve. Her vision began to tunnel. The heat was winning, her body was conserving what little remained. She stopped walking, sat down heavily. No point continuing, nowhere to go. The three suns burned above her. Beautiful in a way. She had never noticed before how beautiful dying light could be. She lay back against the warm glass, waited. The sound came first, low, mechanical. A vibration she felt through the sand before she heard it. An engine. Her eyes opened. The world swam. Through the heat shimmer, a shape moved, dark against the bright sky, growing larger. A vehicle, ground effect type, riding on repulsor fields that kicked up sand in twin rooster tails. Old design, human design. Lyra tried to move, could not. Her body had given everything it had. The vehicle stopped 10 meters away. The engine cut. Silence returned, broken only by the wind. A figure climbed out. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in layered cloth to protect against the heat, a breathing mask covering the lower face. He moved with the careful economy of someone who had survived in hard places for a long time. He approached slowly, not threatening, just cautious. Lyra's hand twitched toward where her sidearm should have been. Empty holster. She had nothing. No weapon, no strength, nothing but consciousness slipping away like water through fingers. The figure knelt beside her, pulled down the breathing mask. A human face, weathered, scarred, lines etched deep by sun and time, dark eyes that had seen too much and kept looking anyway. Late 40s, maybe 50, hard to tell when survival aged you faster than years. Easy, he said. His voice was rough, like gravel tumbling in a drum. You're safe, much as anyone can be out here. Safe. The word felt like a lie. He pulled a scanner from his belt. Cracked screen, patched casing. He ran it over her body, reading results with the practiced efficiency of field medic training. Kessler physiology, he said quietly. You're a long way from home, Commander. She tried to speak. Nothing came out but dust and blood. He cursed softly, reaching for a medical pack. Don't talk. Save your strength. Dying's easy. Survival requires effort. His hands moved quickly. Combat tourniquet around her bleeding side. Hydration pack pressed to her lips. She drank without thinking. The water tasted like metal and salt and life. My name is Caldwell Thorne, he said as he worked. Sergeant, Terran Defense Corps, retired mostly. He stabilized her cracked ribs with compression wrapping, the kind that allowed movement while preventing further damage. Then he examined her leg, fingers careful along the bone. Hairline fracture. Could be worse. I'm going to brace this so you can walk later. It'll hurt. He applied an inflatable splint that hardened on contact with air. The pressure was immediate and intense. She must have made a sound because he paused. I know, but if I don't stabilize this now, the fracture will spread and you'll lose mobility completely. She nodded, or tried to. He continued, careful, methodical. When he finished, he sat back, studying her. 32 years ago, the Dominion glassed my homeworld. Orbital bombardment. Extinction-level event. I was 17, hiding in a basement with my unit when the building came down. Buried under 3 meters of rubble. He paused, looking out at the desert. A Kessler medic pulled me out. Your species. She died doing it. Beam fell, crushed her, but she got me clear first. His eyes returned to Lyra. I pay that debt forward. Always have. He lifted her. She was not a small woman, and her armor added weight, but he managed. Carried her to the vehicle, laid her carefully in the back seat. The journey blurred. She faded in and out, remembered fragments. The vehicle moving fast over sand. Caldwell's hands steady on the controls. The sun setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. When she woke again, everything had changed. She was indoors. The air was cool, filtered. The surface beneath her was soft. A cot. Real fabric, not field expedient. Her eyes snapped open. Panic flooded her system. Training took over. Assess, orient, act. The room was small, Metal walls, dim lights, old construction, human military standard. A bunker. She was in a bunker. Her armor was gone. Clean bandages wrapped her wounds. The pain was still there, but distant now. Medication. Good medication. Combat stimulants mixed with pain suppressors. She recognized the cocktail. Military grade. It would keep her functional for 6 to 8 hours before the crash came. She tried to sit up. Managed it, though her ribs protested. But she was mobile. That was what mattered. Caldwell sat in the corner, working on a weapon. Old rifle, pre-war design. He did not look up. "You heal fast," he said. "Or you're stubborn, hard to tell. You should not have saved me." Now he looked up, met her gaze directly. "Yeah, people tell me that a lot." She studied the room. One exit, heavy blast door, sealed. "Where am I?" "Old mining outpost, derelict. Officially, reality's a bit different." He stood, walking to a wall panel, pressed his hand against it. Biometric scan, cracked years ago and rebuilt with human ingenuity. The panel slid aside, revealing a window. Lyra pushed herself to her feet. Her leg held. The brace was doing its job. She limped to the window, testing her weight with each step. The view took her breath. The bunker was larger than she had imagined. Multiple levels, corridors stretching into darkness. And on the walls, covering every available surface, were maps. Dominion patrol routes, supply lines, command frequencies, fleet movements. All current, all accurate. But there was something else. Something that made her pause. The intelligence was not centralized. Different handwriting on different reports, different equipment signatures on the scanner logs, as if multiple sources were feeding Caldwell data. She turned to him slowly. "How many people are helping you?" Caldwell's expression did not change. "Enough." "That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting, for now." She looked back at the maps. The scope of the intelligence operation represented there was extensive, detailed, the kind of information that took years to compile and required a network, not a single operator. "You're not just a witness," she said quietly. "You're coordinating something. And now so are you. They will come for me. The Dominion does not leave loose ends." "I figured. That's why I brought you here instead of somewhere comfortable." "This is not comfortable?" A small smile tugged at his mouth. "This is a fortress. Comfort comes later, if we live." Lyra moved along the window, studying the bunker's layout. Defense positions, weapon emplacements, escape routes, all expertly designed. "How long have you been here?" "On Kerrigan 9? 15 years. Watching the Dominion? 32. Since the day your people killed my world." "I am sorry for that." "Are you?" He did not say it with anger, just curiosity. "Yes, I have been sorry for a long time, for many things." Caldwell nodded slowly. "I believe you, that's why you're still alive." "Because you believe me?" "Because someone who apologizes for their people's crimes might actually try to stop them." The words hit harder than any weapon. Lyra sat down on the cot, the weight of everything pressed down. The betrayal, the crash, the certainty that her entire life had been leading to this moment. "I filed reports," she said quietly, "for 5 years, questioning extermination protocols. Everyone was ignored. They weren't ignored, they were afraid of them. Of you." She looked up sharply. "What?" Caldwell walked to a console, pulled up a file. Holographic text floated in the air. "Internal Dominion communications, command channel discussions, all marked classified. I've been monitoring these channels for years. Every time you filed a report, it triggered internal debates, arguments, fractures in the council. You made them doubt. That's dangerous to people whose power depends on certainty." Lyra stared at the files, her reports, her words, creating ripples she had never seen, creating fear in the very institution she had served. "They wanted me removed from history because you couldn't be controlled, and because others were starting to listen. Junior officers, ship commanders, even some council members. You were becoming a symbol that had to be eliminated." The bunker trembled slightly. A distant vibration that Lyra felt in her bones. Caldwell's hand went to his sidearm immediately. His entire posture changed. Combat ready. "What was that?" He was already moving to the sensor station. Long-range orbital scan, something just entered the system. The display lit up. 3 contacts, descending fast, sleek profiles, heavy armor, military configuration. Caldwell's jaw tightened. Reaver-class hunter ships. Lyra's blood went cold. Reavers. The Dominion's elite retrieval units. Not soldiers, specialists. Deployed when permanent elimination was required, when evidence needed to disappear. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less if they pushed the wind engines. He began activating systems, defense grids, automated weapons, blast door reinforcements, moving with the practiced speed of someone who had prepared for this exact scenario many times in his mind. Lyra stood, ignoring the protest from her ribs. You have a plan. I have defenses. Whether they're enough depends on how badly they want you eliminated. They want me expunged from history. That badly. Caldwell paused, looking at her. Then we better make sure you become unforgettable. The sensor alarm changed pitch. A new frequency, direct transmission, aimed at the bunker. Caldwell hesitated, then opened the channel. The voice that filled the room was cold, professional, emotionless, modified through filters until it was barely human. Commander Lyra Voss, this is Reaver Team Sigma. High Executive Valen has declared you expunged from Dominion records. Erasure protocols are authorized. Surrender will not be accepted. Resistance will be noted and overcome. You have 10 minutes to make peace with your choices. The transmission cut. Silence filled the bunker. Lyra felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not despair, something harder. Something that burned like the desert suns outside. They want to make it like I never existed, she said quietly. Like my questions never mattered. Like the children I refused to kill never deserved a voice. She turned to Caldwell. Her eyes were clear, focused. The combat stimulants were fully active now. Pain was distant. Purpose was immediate. Then I will make sure I am the last thing they see. Caldwell studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I know this bunker's defenses inside and out. You know Reaver tactics. We coordinate, we might survive. Might? I don't lie to people I respect. Lyra limped to the weapons rack, selected a rifle, checked the charge. Her hands moved with muscle memory older than thought. The weapon felt right, balanced, ready. Sergeant Thorne, you know this terrain, you know these systems. I need you to be honest. Can we win this? Caldwell picked up his own weapon, checked it with the same automatic precision. Win? No. Survive long enough to make them regret coming here? He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Absolutely. The bunker's proximity alarms began to scream. Red lights flooded the corridors. The Reavers were not waiting the full 10 minutes. They were breaching now. Lyra took position behind cover. Her leg ached, but the brace held. Her ribs ground against each other with each breath, but the compression wrap kept them stable. Her shoulder was functional enough. The stimulants would keep her combat effective for hours yet. None of the pain mattered. She had been betrayed, abandoned, left to die in a desert that should have been her grave. But the desert had not killed her, and neither would they. The blast door shuddered, once, twice. The sound of shaped charges burning through reinforced metal. Smoke began to seep through the seams. Caldwell looked at her across the room. His face was calm, ready. Your orders, Commander? Lyra chambered around. The sound echoed in the bunker like a promise. We make them pay for every meter. We make them remember that eliminating me required this much blood. And we make sure someone knows we were here. Yes, ma'am. The blast door exploded inward in a spray of molten metal and chemical smoke. The war had begun. The blast door came apart in sections, not a clean breach, a violent unmaking. Molten metal sprayed across the corridor, hissing as it hit the cooler air. Smoke poured through the gap, thick and chemical, the kind that burned lungs and blinded sensors. Then came the Reavers, 6 of them, each one taller than standard Kessler troops by half a meter. Their armor was black, adaptive plating that shimmered like oil on water, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The helmets had no face, just at a single horizontal red slit where eyes should be. No identity, no humanity, just purpose-made metal. They moved with inhuman precision. Not rushing, not hesitating. Each step calculated for maximum tactical advantage. Each angle covered by overlapping fields of fire. Predators who had done this 1,000 times before and expected to do it 1,000 times more. The lad Reaver's voice echoed through external speakers. Flat, emotionless. Commander Voss, compliance is no longer an option. Termination protocols are active. Lyra did not answer. She was too busy tracking their positions, reading their formation, calculating firing solutions. 6 targets, 2 entry points visible, the breach and the ventilation shaft to the left. 3 more potential access routes based on bunker schematics Caldwell had shown her during their brief preparation. The Reavers spread out. Professional. Textbook assault formation for confined spaces. Overlapping fields of fire. Mutual support. No gaps in coverage. Caldwell's voice came through her earpiece, calm and steady. Section C corridor. I'm dropping the ceiling panel in 3, 2, 1. A massive metal panel fell from above, slamming down between the lead Reaver and his team with a thunderous crash. The sound was tremendous. The separation was temporary, maybe 10 seconds before they adapted and pushed through. 10 seconds was a lifetime in combat. Lyra fired, 3-round burst. Not at the Reaver's armor, where the shots would scatter uselessly. At the wall junction behind him, where structural supports were already weakened from decades of neglect. The plasma bolts punched through corroded metal. The wall sagged. Sparks erupted like fireflies. Emergency systems triggered, flooding that section with fire suppression foam. The lead Reaver disappeared into the white chemical cloud. His team scattered left and right, repositioning with mechanical efficiency. Moving, Lyra transmitted. She moved fast down the side corridor, her gait uneven but functional. The leg brace held. The stimulants kept the pain manageable. She used the bunker's layout against them. Narrow passages where superior numbers meant nothing. Tight corners where reaction time mattered more than firepower. Behind her, she heard the Reaver punching through the fallen-tainted panel. Not climbing over, not cutting through, punching through with augmented strength. The sound of rending metal told her everything about what she was facing. The corridor branched ahead. Left led to the central hub where Caldwell was coordinating defenses. Right led to the old storage sections with their traps and prepared positions. She went right, counting steps silently. 20, 30, 40. She stopped, pressed herself against the wall, controlled her breathing, waited. The Reaver came around the corner fast, weapon up and scanning, adaptive sensors sweeping the corridor in overlapping patterns. Lyra was below his sight line, on one knee, waiting with the patience of a hunter who knew prey always made mistakes. She fired point blank into the joint between helmet and chest plate. The armor there was thinner by necessity, designed for mobility at the cost of protection. The plasma bolt burned through the vulnerable seam. The Reaver's scream was mechanical, processed through damaged speakers into something that sounded almost digital. He went down hard, servos locking, weapon clattering. 1 down, 5 remaining. She did not wait to confirm the kill. Movement was life in close quarters combat. She pushed forward, leg protesting but functional, following the route she had memorized. Her earpiece crackled. Nice work, Commander, but they're adapting faster than anticipated, splitting into 3 teams. 2 hunters each. Classic flush and kill pattern. They're herding you toward predetermined kill zones. Let them try. She reached the storage section. Old mining equipment lined the walls like the fossilized remains of some industrial beast. Caldwell had converted some of it over the years, turning obsolete machinery into improvised weapons, traps waiting for the right moment. She just needed to lead them to the right places. Footsteps behind her, 2 sets. Moving with coordinated precision, maintaining tactical spacing. They were not rushing. They knew she was wounded, knew her options were limited, knew the bunker's layout probably better than she did now. They wanted her to run, to panic, to make the mistakes that injured prey always made. She ran, but not in panic, with purpose. The storage bay opened ahead, a large space with multiple levels of catwalks crisscrossing overhead like metal spiderwebs. Exactly what she needed. She burst through the doorway. Let them see weakness in her gait. Let them think the leg was failing faster than it actually was. Made it look desperate. 2 Reavers entered behind her, weapons tracking with mechanical precision. They had her in an open space with minimal cover. Textbook kill zone from their perspective. Except Caldwell had spent 15 years making this bunker into something other than textbook. Now, Lyra said quietly into her comm, the floor dropped. Not all of it. Just sections, pressure plates Caldwell had installed years ago in preparation for a moment exactly like this. The second reaver fell through, crashing down into the sublevel with an impact that shook the entire structure. The fall would not kill something built that heavily, but it would disorient, delay, separate. The first reaver's stabilizers caught the edge. He hung there for a moment, armor compensating, systems calculating the best recovery angle, about to pull himself up with augmented strength. Lyra shot him in the face. The red sensor slit shattered like colored glass. Sparks erupted. The reaver's systems failed. He fell. 2 down, 4 remaining. Her earpiece hissed with static. Then Caldwell's voice came through, tighter now, more urgent. Lyra, they're bypassing the main corridors. Coming through the ventilation system faster than I anticipated. I'm sealing sections, but they're cutting through bulkheads like paper. They brought heavy equipment. Where are you? Command center, sub-level 2. Trying to keep the defense grid online, but they're jamming half our systems with military-grade electronic warfare. This is more sophisticated than standard Reaver deployment. A thought crystallized in Lyra's mind, cold and clear and terrible. The Crucible. Can we activate it? Silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then Caldwell's voice, lower, more careful. Yes, but it requires 2 operators. One to manage the control systems from the activation chamber. One to hold the defensive perimeter while the boot sequence runs. It takes 3 minutes for the hydraulics to reach operational pressure. And Lyra, anyone in the activation chamber when it fully engages, dies, I know. It's not a certainty. There are maintenance shafts built into the structure. Escape routes for workers if something went wrong during the mining operations. But they're narrow, designed for unarmored personnel, and the timing would have to be perfect. But not guarantees. No, not guarantees. She heard movement above her position, in the ceiling ventilation ducts. They were in the system now, moving through the bunker's circulatory system like a virus through a body. She had maybe 2 minutes before they dropped down on her position from multiple angles simultaneously. Where is the Crucible? Bunker core, sub-level 3. Lyra, there has to be another way. We can fall back, collapse the tunnels behind us. Buy time for what? They won't stop. They'll tear this entire structure apart piece by piece to find me. They'll call in orbital support if they have to. But if we activate the Crucible, if we take out enough of them, the survivors will report back. They'll tell Valen that erasing me cost him dearly, that I didn't just die quietly. She was already moving toward the central lift shaft, her decision made. Her leg was holding, but she could feel the hairline fracture spreading with each impact. The stimulants would keep her functional for another few hours, but the cost would come due eventually. Everything had a cost. Send me the access codes. I'm going to the core. Commander. That's an order, Sergeant Thorne. Silence. Then the codes appeared on her heads-up display, a string of numbers and command phrases built into the bunker's security systems over decades of careful preparation. Understood, ma'am, Caldwell said quietly. I'll route secondary power to the activation sequence. When you reach the core, you'll have 3 minutes before they breach the chamber. The controls are manual, built that way deliberately to prevent remote tampering. Big red lever on the main console. You can't miss it. And you? I'll do what I can from command center. Slow them down, make them pay for every meter, buy you the time you need. Lyra reached the lift shaft. The elevator car was gone, called to another level or destroyed in the initial assault. She would have to climb 3 levels down with a fractured leg and cracked ribs. She looked at the ladder rungs, then down at her leg, at the improvised brace Caldwell had applied in the desert. The fracture was stable for now, but climbing would stress it beyond its limits. She released the brace. The supports fell away. Her leg immediately began to buckle, the fracture spreading, pain blooming white-hot even through the stimulants. She grabbed the ladder with both hands, held herself up through arm strength and core muscles alone, started climbing down. Every rung was negotiation with a body that wanted to stop. Her leg dangled useless below her, dead weight pulling at her hip socket. She descended hand over hand, one rung at a time, sweat running into her eyes despite the cool filtered air. Above her, the sound of cutting torches. They had found the shaft, were coming down from the top. Below her, movement in the darkness. The reaver who had fallen through the floor, damaged but functional, climbing up toward her. She was trapped between them. Lyra kept climbing down, focused on the next rung, only the next rung. Nothing else existed but the next handhold and the next movement. Her hands slipped, sweaty palms, bloody fingers. She caught herself with the other hand, hung there for a moment, suspended over darkness, breathing hard. The reaver below was gaining, his climbing speed augmented by servo-assisted strength. She could hear the mechanical whir of his armor's power systems. 15 more rungs to sub-level 3 access. The reaver reached for her useless ankle. His hand closed around it like a vice. Pulled. Lyra let go of the ladder, fell backward, crashed into the reaver. They tumbled together, a tangle of limbs and armor, hitting the sub-level 2 landing hard enough to crack the deck plating and send shockwaves through the entire structure. The reaver recovered first, combat systems compensating for the impact. Started to rise, weapon coming up. Lyra was faster. She drove her combat knife through the joint in his neck seal, the blade finding the vulnerable gap between helmet and chestplate. Twisted hard. The reaver spasmed once, twice, then went still. Hydraulic fluid mixing with coolant on the deck. 3 down, 3 remaining. She crawled to the sub-level 3 access hatch, every movement an exercise in controlled agony, pulled herself through, sealed it behind her. The lock would not hold long against military-grade breaching equipment, maybe a minute if she was lucky. The corridor stretched ahead, emergency lighting only, casting everything in shades of red and shadow. The Crucible's entrance was at the far end, massive reinforced doors marked with warning symbols in 3 languages, each one variations of the same message. Danger, industrial equipment, authorized personnel only. She dragged herself forward, arms doing all the work now. The stimulants were wearing thin. She could feel it in the way pain was starting to break through, sharp and immediate instead of distant and manageable. Her body was reaching the limits of what chemistry and willpower could achieve. The doors opened to her access codes. Inside, the Crucible waited. It had been an ore processing facility once, designed to handle asteroid fragments too large for standard refinement. Massive industrial crushers sat in the center of the enormous chamber. Huge hydraulic jaws that could generate enough pressure to compress solid metal into diamond-dense fragments. During the war, human engineers had converted it into something else. A trap, a weapon of last resort, a way to make invaders pay in blood for every meter they took. The chamber was 5 stories tall, the crushers dominating the center like the fossilized remains of some mechanical god. Around them, a network of catwalks and control stations created a 3-dimensional maze of metal and purpose. And at the bottom, the activation chamber, where someone would need to stand and operate the manual controls while holding off attackers for 3 critical minutes. Lyra descended the stairs, each step a negotiation with muscles that wanted to quit. She reached the activation chamber floor. The controls were exactly as Caldwell had described. A console covered in switches and displays, decades old but maintained with obsessive care. And in the center, impossible to miss, a large red lever. Simple, brutal, effective. Her earpiece crackled. Lyra, they're through the access hatch. All 3 remaining units converging on your position. Maybe 90 seconds. How long does the Crucible need? 3 minutes from activation to full operational capacity. You'll have to hold them off while the pressure builds. She looked at the lever, at the chamber around her, at the trap she was about to spring on herself as much as on them. Caldwell, when this is over, if I don't make it out, tell someone. Tell the galaxy what happened to you. Tell them I chose this. Don't. Promise me. Silence stretched. Then his voice, thick with something that might have been grief or might have been pride. I promise. But you're going to tell them yourself, because you're going to survive this. You're going to pull that lever, hold them off for 3 minutes, and then you're going to get to the maintenance shaft before the Crucible fully engages. That's an order from an old sergeant to a young commander. She wanted to believe him. Almost did. The chamber doors exploded inward with a blast that shook the foundations. 3 reavers entered in perfect tactical formation, Weapons up, sensor scanning, moving with coordinated precision that spoke to years of training and battlefield experience. They saw her immediately, standing alone at the control console, wounded and exhausted and out of options. They raised their weapons. Lyra grabbed the console and pulled herself upright on one leg, facing them directly. "You came to erase me," she said. Her voice echoed at the massive chamber, bouncing off metal walls. "You came to make it like I never existed, like my questions never mattered, like the children I refused to murder never deserved a chance at life." The lead Reaver's weapon tracked to her center mass. "Final warning, Commander Voss. Step away from the controls." She laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. But she laughed anyway because the alternative was screaming, and she refused to give them that satisfaction. "I'm done stepping away. I'm done being quiet. I'm done letting people like you decide who deserves to live." She reached for the lever. The Reaver fired. The plasma bolt took her in the side, punching through already damaged armor, through flesh, through everything. She felt it burn, felt her body trying to shut down, trying to protect itself from trauma it could not possibly survive. Her hand closed on the lever. Movement above. Fast. From the upper catwalk, Caldwell. He had left the command center. "Come here." And now he was diving, not toward her, but toward the lead Reaver, his body a projectile driven by pure determination. They collided midair. Caldwell's weight and momentum carried them both over the railing. They fell together 20 meters down, into the activation chamber, into the space where the crushers would engage. "No!" Lyra's scream tore her throat raw. Caldwell's voice came through her earpiece, somehow still calm despite the fall, despite everything. "Pull the lever, Commander. That's an order. Finish the job." The other two Reavers were repositioning, moving to flank her, weapons tracking. Plasma bolts scorched the air around her position. She felt one graze her already injured shoulder, felt another hit the console, destroying half the interface in a shower of sparks. But the lever was undamaged. Below, Caldwell and the lead Reaver were fighting hand-to-hand. The Reaver's superior strength should have ended it in seconds. But Caldwell was not fighting to win. He was fighting to hold, to buy seconds, to keep the Reaver in the kill zone. "Now, Lyra, do it now." Her hand shook on the lever. Everything in her screamed against it. This would kill Caldwell, the man who had saved her life, who had given her purpose when everything else had been taken away, who had become something more than an ally in the brief time they had known each other. But if she did not pull it, they would both die, and the Reavers would report back that erasing her had been easy. That resistance was futile. That one person could not make a difference. Caldwell looked up from below. Their eyes met across the distance, and he smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine and at peace. "Make it matter, Commander." Lyra pulled the lever. The crucible roared to life. Deep below, ancient machinery engaged for the first time in 28 years. Hydraulic systems that had slept dormant surged with power, pressure building in massive pistons. The crushers began to move, slowly at first like some great beast waking from hibernation, then faster as momentum built and systems reached operational parameters. The chamber floor started to retract, sections pulling away on rails designed to feed material into the crushing mechanism. The activation chamber was becoming a pit, a mouth, a mechanical throat designed to consume and destroy. The lead Reaver tried to disengage from Caldwell, tried to reach safety, but Caldwell held on with desperate strength, arms locked around the Reaver's torso. They slid together toward the opening, neither able to break free. Lyra turned away, could not watch, but she heard it. The grinding, the mechanical thunder of metal teeth meeting metal armor, the sound of the Reaver being crushed. And underneath that, for just a moment, a human voice, then silence from below. The other two Reavers were firing at the control systems now, trying to stop the crucible, but the machine had been built with one purpose: to be unstoppable once activated. No computer to hack, no wireless systems to jam, just ancient hydraulics and human stubbornness made metal. They turned their weapons back on Lyra. She was collapsed against the console now, the plasma wound in her side bleeding freely, her vision fading at the edges. No strength left, nothing but the fading heat of life. The first Reaver aimed for her head, his weapon charged and ready to end this. Then Caldwell's voice crackled in her earpiece. Broken, distorted by static and pain, but unmistakably there. Voss, override code, Zeta 9 Charlie, heavy weapons vault. She blinked. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. The maintenance shaft, he had found it, used it, escaped at the last possible second, just like he had said was possible. Heavy weapons, she whispered, the words barely forming through the pain and shock. Her hand found the override panel on the console, fingers moving on pure muscle memory. She keyed in the code, each number taking tremendous effort. Across the chamber, weapons lockers unsealed with pneumatic hisses. Old military hardware emerged from hidden compartments. Human Defense Corps standard issue from the last war. Heavy caliber weapons, built to punch through Dominion armor when nothing else would. A rotary autocannon slid out of the wall on automated tracks, 30mm rounds in belt-fed configuration, designed for vehicle suppression and hardpoint elimination. The kind of weapon that did not care about energy shields or adaptive plating. Lyra grabbed the manual controls, her vision fading but her purpose crystal clear. The weapon felt heavy in her hands, real weight instead of the almost weightless energy weapons she had trained with her entire career. She aimed at the closest Reaver. "You wanted me deleted from history," she said, her voice stronger now, fueled by rage and determination. "You'll have to work harder than that." She fired. The autocannon roared with a sound like the world tearing itself apart. Not the clean pulse of energy weapons. The brutal percussion of kinetic rounds leaving barrels at speeds that turned air into plasma. The sound filled the chamber, overwhelming everything else, becoming the only reality. The Reaver's armor was state-of-the-art, designed to deflect energy weapons and resist small arms fire with adaptive plating that redistributed impact force. It was not designed for sustained fire from a weapon built to destroy armored vehicles. The rounds punched through. First one, then another, then a dozen more in rapid succession. The Reaver's chest plate shattered like ceramic, fragments flying in all directions. He staggered backward, trying to return fire, systems failing. Fell. 4 down, 1 remaining. The last Reaver did not freeze, did not hesitate. Turned and executed a tactical withdrawal, moving with speed and purpose back toward the entrance. Not cowardice, professional assessment, mission failure, need to extract and report. Lyra tracked to him with the autocannon, fired. The rounds chased him up the stairs, tearing chunks out of the metal steps, catching him at the doorway. He went down in a spray of sparks and shredded armor, weapons skittering away across the deck. 5 down, 1 remaining somewhere in the bunker. Then silence, broken only by the continued grinding of the crucible below and the ringing in Lyra's ears that might never fully fade. She let go of the autocannon. The weapon was hot enough to glow faintly in the dim light. She slid down the console, sat heavily on the deck. Blood pooled around her, too much blood. The plasma wound had torn something critical. She could feel her body shutting down, systems failing one by one. "Caldwell," she said into the comms, her voice barely a whisper. "Caldwell, respond." Static, then a groan that might have been words. "Still here. Mostly. Maintenance shaft, level 2 sublevel. Something's on my arm. Can't move it." Relief flooded through her, strong enough to overcome the pain for a moment. "Where exactly?" "Follow the emergency markers. Blue lights. They'll lead you to the shaft access." She tried to stand, failed, tried again. This time she made it, leaning heavily against the console, then the wall, then using whatever was available for support. Started walking, 1 step, 2, each one a victory against a body that wanted nothing more than to stop. The facility was a maze of corridors and shafts, but the emergency markers were there like he had said, blue lights creating a path through the case. She followed them, leaving a blood trail behind her, moving through pure determination. Found the maintenance shaft access panel, pulled it open with strength she did not know she still had. Caldwell lay in the narrow space, a support beam across his left arm, pinning him against the metal floor. The arm was crushed beyond any hope of saving, mangled and bleeding. His face was gray with shock, but his eyes were still alert, still present. "Hey, Commander," he said, voice weak but carrying that same dry humor. "Told you there were escape routes." "Shut up, save your strength." She examined the beam, too heavy to lift with her injuries in his trapped position. But the shaft had emergency releases, manual overrides built into the system for exactly this kind of situation. She found the lever, pulled it with both hands. The beam shifted, rose slightly on mechanical arms. Caldwell screamed through his teeth, but did not pass out, which spoke to a level of pain tolerance that Lyra could barely comprehend. She dragged him clear of the beam, out of the shaft, into the corridor. His arm came free. What remained of it? The damage was catastrophic. The limb would have to be amputated, probably at the elbow, assuming they survived long enough for medical intervention. "Field tourniquet," she said, her voice taking on the crisp tone of command that had been drilled into her at Academy. Now, she applied it from her own medical kit, tightening the band until the bleeding slowed from a flood to a trickle. Not stopped, just slowed. That was the best she could do under the circumstances. They sat together in the corridor, two broken soldiers surrounded by the evidence of a battle that should have killed them both. The bunker was quiet now except for the distant grinding of the crucible still operating on its automated cycle. "They'll send more," Caldwell said, his voice growing fainter. "This won't stop the Dominion. If anything, it'll make them more determined." "I know. So what do we do?" Lyra looked at him, at the man who had saved her life twice now, who had sacrificed his arm to give her a chance to complete the mission, who had believed in her when she had barely believed in herself. "We make them pay for it," she said. "We make the cost so high that the Dominion has to explain to the entire galaxy why erasing one dissenting officer required this much blood. We make them justify sending reavers and fleets and whatever else they throw at us. We make silence more expensive than acknowledgement." Caldwell laughed. It was a broken sound, more cough than humor. "You're developing a mean streak, Commander. I learned from the best." The bunker's long-range sensors began to chime, a sound that Lyra was coming to hate with a passion that surprised her. New contacts, orbital space, multiple signatures. Caldwell's eyes shifted to the nearest display panel, reading the data with the automatic skill of someone who had been monitoring threats for decades. His expression changed, went flat, empty. "No," he said quietly. "No, it's too soon. They shouldn't have full fleet resources available this quickly." "What is it?" He pointed at the screen with his remaining hand. The display showed orbital space above Kerrigan 9, enhanced with tactical overlays and identification markers. 22 contacts. Dominion warships, materializing from hyperspace in perfect formation. Capital ships. Destroyers, support vessels. Not a patrol, not a hunter group. An extermination fleet. Lyra stared at the screen, at the overwhelming force now descending on their position. 6 reavers had nearly killed them. 22 warships was not a battle. It was an execution. A final solution to the problem she represented. Caldwell slumped against the wall, his face reflecting the same calculations she was making. The same terrible math. "We can't fight that. The bunker's defenses were designed for ground assault and maybe a few orbital strikes, not sustained bombardment from capital ships." "No," Lyra agreed, her mind already racing ahead, searching for options that did not exist. "We can't fight it." She paused. Something shifted in her thoughts. A different angle, a different battlefield. "But we don't have to fight them," she said slowly, the idea taking shape even as she spoke it. "We have to expose them, make them visible, force them to justify this level of response in front of the entire galaxy." "How?" "They're jamming all communications. Standard protocol for fleet operations." "Then we break through the jamming." "Caldwell, does this bunker have long-range communications capability? Military-grade transmission equipment?" His eyes widened slightly with understanding. "The command center. Yes, old Human Defense Corps array, built to punch signals through battlefield interference. If we route enough power to it, if we use the right frequencies, we might be able to reach neutral relay stations." "How long would you need?" 10 minutes to route power and configure the systems. Another 5 to break through their jamming with a broadcast strong enough to reach the relay network." "You'll have it." She helped him to his feet. They moved together through the bunker, 2 wounded soldiers supporting each other, heading toward the command center in what might be their last stand. The bombardment began as they reached the command center doors. The entire structure shook with the first impact, a ranging shot from one of the destroyers testing the bunker's defenses. Dust fell from the ceiling. Warning klaxons began to scream. They were out of time. Caldwell fell into the communications chair, his remaining hand flying across the controls despite the pain he had to be experiencing. Rerouting power from life support, from weapons systems, from everything non-essential. We'll have maybe 15 minutes of air after this, but the transmission will be strong enough to reach half the sector. Lyra moved to the defense station, brought up what remained of the bunker's weapon systems. Auto turrets that could not threaten capital ships but might distract them. Missile batteries with limited ammunition. Energy shields that were already failing under the initial bombardment. She was one wounded officer with a half-functional bunker against 22 warships crewed by thousands of trained personnel. But she had survived worse in the last 8 hours, and she was done running. The command center's main screen flickered to life. High Executive Valen's face appeared, his expression cold and satisfied. He looked like someone who had finally cornered a particularly annoying problem and was about to solve it permanently. Lyra Voss, this world is now sealed. All human presence will be eliminated. Surrender yourself and the extermination will be limited to this facility and its immediate surroundings. Resist and we will sterilize the entire planetary surface. Every bunker, every installation, every living thing. Lyra looked at the screen, at the face of the man who had ordered her erased, who had sent reavers, who now commanded a fleet, all to silence one officer who had dared to question orders. And she smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Executor Valen, she said, her voice steady despite the pain and exhaustion. You misunderstand the situation entirely. I'm not trapped down here with your fleet. Your fleet is trapped up there with the truth I'm about to broadcast. Valen's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty. You have nothing. You are nothing. A traitor who will be forgotten by history. Then why did you send 22 ships to kill me? For the first time in the entire confrontation, she saw emotion cross his face. Real emotion, anger barely controlled. Caldwell, she said quietly. How long? 8 minutes, maybe less if they intensify the jamming. Lyra turned back to Valen. You have 8 minutes, Executor. 8 minutes to explain to the Galactic Council why the Kessar Dominion deployed an extermination fleet to silence one officer who refused an illegal order. 8 minutes before every neutral power in this sector knows exactly what you are and what you're willing to do to maintain the illusion of control. You're bluffing. You have no way to break through military-grade jamming. Try me. Test that theory. See what happens when you assume humans can't do things that should be impossible. The transmission cut. Valen's face disappeared, but the bombardment intensified immediately. They were not waiting, not risking it. The fleet opened up with everything they had. The bunker screamed under the assault. Shields collapsed within 30 seconds. Armor plating began to fail. Structural supports groaned. The entire facility was being pounded into rubble meter by meter. Caldwell worked through it all, his hands steady on the controls despite the chaos, rerouting power, adjusting frequencies, building a signal strong enough to punch through the jamming and reach the relay stations that would carry it across the sector. 6 minutes, he said. The jamming is sophisticated. They're using rotating frequencies and adaptive countermeasures. I need more time. Take what you need, I'll buy it. Lyra activated what remained of the defense systems, fired the missile batteries, not at the capital ships where they would be easily intercepted, but at the destroyer screen, forcing them to maneuver, creating gaps in the bombardment pattern. Activated the auto turrets, making them a nuisance, a distraction. It would not stop the fleet, but it might slow them down. Might buy Caldwell the minutes he needed. The command center's ceiling began to crack. A support beam fell, barely missing Caldwell's position. Sparks erupted from damaged consoles. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning insulation. 4 minutes, Caldwell said. Signal strength at 60%. Need 80 to guarantee transmission through their countermeasures. Another impact. Closer. The blast wave threw Lyra against the wall. She tasted blood, felt something break inside her chest. One of the cracked ribs finally giving way completely. The pain was transcendent, overwhelming the stimulants that were already wearing off. She pulled herself back to the defense console, Kept firing, kept distracting, kept buying seconds. 3 minutes, 70%, almost there. The main door to the command center buckled inward, not from orbital bombardment, from something closer. The last Reaver, the one that had escaped. He had found them. The door exploded. The Reaver entered, weapon raised, moving with mechanical determination toward Caldwell's position. Lyra stepped between them. She had no weapon, no strength, nothing but determination and the certain knowledge that Caldwell needed every second she could buy him. "You want him?" she said to the Reaver. "You go through me first." The Reaver aimed. She was an easy target, wounded, exhausted, unable to dodge or defend herself effectively. He fired and missed, not because his aim was poor, because the bunker shook at exactly that moment from another orbital strike, throwing off his targeting by centimeters. The plasma bolt passed close enough to singe her hair. Lyra did not waste the gift of that lucky moment. She charged, closed the distance between them despite her injuries, got inside his guard where his weapons could not track effectively. She had no illusions about winning this fight, but she did not need to win. She just needed to delay, to hold his attention, to keep him from Caldwell for another 2 minutes. They grappled. His strength was overwhelming, augmented servos against damaged human muscle. He lifted her, threw her. She hit a console hard enough to crack the casing. Got up anyway, grabbed a piece of debris, swung it at his sensors. 2 minutes, Caldwell's voice. Signal at 85%. We're through the jamming, preparing to broadcast. The Reaver turned toward Caldwell, raised his weapon. This time his aim would not miss. Lyra grabbed his arm, hung on with all her remaining strength. He tried to shake her off. She held on. 1 minute, broadcast uploading. The Reaver's other hand closed around Lyra's throat, lifted her off the ground. She felt her airway closing, felt consciousness beginning to fade, but she did not let go of his weapon arm, did not release her grip. 30 seconds. The Reaver threw her aside. She hit the floor, could not get up this time. Everything had stopped working. She could only watch as he aimed at Caldwell again. Broadcasting now, signal away. The Reaver fired. The shot took Caldwell in the shoulder. He cried out but did not move from the console. His hand slammed down on the final control, completing the transmission sequence. Done, he gasped. It's done. The evidence is transmitted. Everything. Your trial, the extermination orders, Valen's commands, all of it, broadcasting to every relay station within range. The Reaver stood frozen. Mission parameters had changed. He had been sent to prevent the broadcast. The broadcast had succeeded. New calculations were required. Before he could complete those calculations, the orbital bombardment finally broke through the last of the bunker's structural integrity. The ceiling collapsed. Tons of metal and stone fell. The Reaver disappeared under the debris. Lyra and Caldwell were in a pocket of survival, protected by the angle of the fall, but buried, trapped. They lay in darkness, bleeding, broken, but alive. Did it work? Lyra whispered. Caldwell pulled up a damaged display, somehow still functional. Showed her. The transmission had reached the relay network, was amplifying, spreading, jumping from station to station across the sector. Within minutes, it would reach major communication hubs. Within hours, the entire galaxy would know what had happened here. It worked, he confirmed. Everyone's listening now. And on the display, new contacts were appearing. Ships entering the system. Not Dominion, others. Neutral powers responding to the broadcast. Coming to observe. To witness. To ensure that what happened next would happen in front of the entire galaxy. Lyra closed her eyes. Let the darkness take her. They had done it. Against all odds. Against impossible circumstances. They had made enough noise that the galaxy had no choice but to listen. Lyra woke to voices, distant, muffled, speaking languages she recognized but could not quite place through the fog in her mind. Her body felt distant, wrapped in medication and bandages, in something that might have been hope or might have been shock. She tried to move, failed, tried to speak, managed a sound that was barely recognizable as human. She's conscious. Get the medics. Footsteps, the sound of equipment. Then a face appeared above her. Human, female, late 40s. Wearing combat armor marked with insignia, Lyra did not immediately recognize. Easy, Commander Voss. You're safe. You're in a medical facility. Resistance Installation 3. We pulled you and Sergeant Thorne from the bunker collapsed 6 hours ago. 6 hours. The bombardment, the broadcast, the ceiling falling. Caldwell, she managed to say, in surgery, critical but stable. He's going to lose the arm below the elbow, but he'll survive. Stubborn old soldier kept talking through the whole extraction, giving our medics instructions on how to treat you. Lyra closed her eyes, felt relief wash through her strong enough to overwhelm the pain. He was alive. They were both alive. I'm Captain Reeves, the woman continued, field commander for the Human Resistance Network on Carrigan 9. We've been monitoring the situation. What you did, Commander, broadcasting that evidence, it changed everything. The fleet? Still in orbit, but they're not bombarding anymore. Other ships arrived, neutral observers, Galactic Council Enforcement Division. The Dominion can't risk continuing the attack with that many witnesses present. Lyra opened her eyes, looked at Reeves. How many? How many what? Installations. Caldwell mentioned a network. How many? Reeves hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. 53 active installations across Carrigan 9, different sizes, different capabilities. Some are just listening posts, others are full defensive bunkers like the one you were in. We've been building this network for 30 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. 30 years, 3 decades of preparation, of humans surviving on a world the Dominion had abandoned as worthless, building, planning, waiting for someone like her to give them a reason to stand up. Why now, Lyra asked. Because you gave us something we've never had before. A Dominion officer with enough rank to matter, enough principle to stand against orders, and enough courage to broadcast the truth, no matter the cost. You made us visible, Commander. You made our resistance legitimate in the eyes of the galaxy. Footsteps in the corridor outside, then a voice Lyra recognized even through the medication fog. Caldwell, arguing with someone about leaving his bed too early. He appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on a medic, his left arm ending in bandages at the elbow. His face was gray with pain and blood loss, but his eyes were alert. Told you she'd be awake, he said to the medic. Then to Reeves, Captain, give us a minute. Reeves nodded and left, closing the door behind her. Caldwell lowered himself carefully into the chair beside Lyra's bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Two people who had survived something that should have killed them. Who had accomplished something that should have been impossible. Your broadcast worked better than we could have hoped, Caldwell finally said. Every major news network in the sector is running the story. Dominion war crimes, extermination protocols, the entire trial recording where you refused to murder civilians, it's everywhere. What's the response? Mixed. Dominion loyalists are calling you a traitor and calling for your execution. But others, including some high-ranking Kessler officers, are publicly questioning the protocols. 3 colony governors have resigned in protest. Reform movements are spreading across Dominion space. He pulled up a holographic display from a portable unit, showed her news feeds, dozens of them. Her face replicated across 1,000 screens. Her words echoed in 100 languages. You started something that can't be stopped, he said quietly. 1 officer, 1 refusal, 1 broadcast. That's all it took to crack the foundation. Lyra watched the feeds, saw her own testimony spreading like wildfire, saw the reactions, the protests, the debates, the galaxies wrestling with questions it had been avoiding for decades. What happened to the fleet, she asked. Still in orbit, but under observation by neutral forces. Valen has been recalled to the Dominion capital for questioning. The Galactic Council opened formal investigations into all outstanding extermination protocols. They're calling emergency sessions. And here, the installations? Coming out of hiding, all 53. We're not fugitives anymore. The Galactic Council has recognized Carrigan 9 as a sovereign human territory under their protection. Neutral powers have established observation posts to prevent further Dominion aggression. He paused, looked at her directly. You've also been offered asylum by 7 different governments. Command positions with 4 different militaries. Even a teaching post at the Galactic Strategic Institute on Telm Prime. Lyra closed her eyes, felt the weight of those offers, the safety they represented, the chance to walk away from all of this and build a different life. I haven't told them anything, Caldwell continued. What you decide is your choice. No one will pressure you. You've already done more than anyone could have asked. What about you? Me? I'm staying here. Someone needs to coordinate the transition from resistance network to legitimate colony. Make sure we don't waste this chance you gave us. You'll need a title. Official standing. Caldwell laughed softly. I'm a sergeant who lives in a bunker. I don't need titles. The galaxy needs to know who to talk to, who speaks for Kerrigan 9. Before Caldwell could respond, the door opened again. This time it was not Reeves. 3 figures entered, formal attire, diplomatic insignia. One of them was clearly Galactic Council, the others representing neutral powers. The lead diplomat, an elderly being from a species Lyra did not immediately recognize, stepped forward carefully. Commander Voss, I apologize for the intrusion during your recovery, but the situation requires urgent discussion. I am Magistrate Torin, Galactic Council Enforcement Division. Lyra tried to sit up, failed. Caldwell helped her, adjusting the bed to a more upright position. Magistrate, she acknowledged, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer formal apologies for our failure to prevent the atrocities committed against you and for our insufficient oversight of Dominion extermination protocols. We also come with a proposal. I'm listening. Torin's expression was grave. The Council is forming a joint peacekeeping force, multi-species, multicultural, designed to prevent future genocides and ensure enforcement of sapient rights protocols across all member territories. We would like you to command it. Silence filled the room. Lyra stared at the magistrate. You want me to command Kessar troops after everything that happened? We want you to command officers from all species, human, Kessar, Teln, Oshara, everyone, to build something new, not conquest, not domination, cooperation, understanding, enforcement of the principles you defended when it cost you everything. She looked at Caldwell. He met her eyes, nodded once. Your choice, your decision. I'll support whatever you decide. Lyra thought about the bunker, the battle, the broadcast, the cost in blood and pain and sacrifice. She thought about the children in Ashbourne Colony, still alive because she had refused an order. She thought about all the other colonies, other children, other people who deserve someone to stand between them and extinction. I accept, she said, on 3 conditions. Magistrate Torin blinked. Conditions? First, complete transparency. All peacekeeping operations are public record. No classified missions. No secret orders. No hidden agendas. If we're building something new, it exists in daylight or it doesn't exist at all. The magistrate exchanged glances with his companions. Agreed. Though some tactical information may require temporary security restrictions. Temporary, with mandatory disclosure after operations conclude. Non-negotiable. Understood. Agreed. Second, Caldwell Thorne is appointed Planetary Defense Commander of Kerrigan 9 with full authority and council backing, not as resistance leader, as legitimate military authority for a recognized sovereign territory. Caldwell started to protest. Lyra silenced him with a look that carried the full weight of command authority she had spent 20 years developing. Also agreed, Torin said. Third, the peacekeeping force investigates all outstanding Dominion extermination orders, not just the one I refused, all of them, every colony, every target, every authorization. And we bring charges against everyone involved, regardless of rank or position. The magistrate hesitated. Commander, that will be politically complicated. Many of those orders were authorized by high-ranking officials with significant political influence. I don't care about politics. I care about justice, and justice is not negotiable. A long pause. Torin looked at his companions. Some conversation happened in glances and subtle gestures. Finally, he nodded. Agreed, though I suspect you will make many powerful enemies. Lyra smiled. It was tired but genuine. I already have. What's a few more? The delegation spent another hour discussing logistics, timelines, resources. When they finally left, Lyra and Caldwell were alone again. You didn't have to do that, Caldwell said quietly. The promotion, the title. I'm just a sergeant who got lucky. No, you're the person who turned a dead world into a fortress. Who built a network that survived for 30 years? Who saved my life and gave me the tools to make a difference? If Kerrigan 9 is going to become something more than a resistance hideout, it needs someone who understands both survival and hope. That's you. And you, commander of a galactic peacekeeping force? That's going to make you a target for everyone who benefits from the current system. I know, but someone has to stand up and say that genocide is unacceptable, that following orders is not an excuse for atrocity, that conscience matters more than convenience. Might as well be me. Caldwell was quiet for a moment. Then he extended his remaining hand. Lyra took it. They gripped firmly, two warriors who had found each other in the worst circumstances and changed history together. What happens now? He asked. Now I heal. Then I start building a peacekeeping force that actually means something. And you turn this collection of bunkers into a colony that proves humans can build something worth protecting. And Valen, the Dominion officers who authorized extermination protocols, they faced justice, public trials, full transparency. Everything they tried to hide gets exposed to daylight and examined by the galaxy. That's the deal. A week later, Lyra was mobile, not healthy, not recovered, but functional enough to walk with support and think clearly through the fog of pain medication. The medical facility's director had protested, wanted her to stay longer, but Lyra had spent enough time in beds. She walked through the installation with Caldwell, who was adapting to his prosthetic arm with the same stubborn determination he brought to everything. The facility was larger than the bunker they had fought in, built deeper into Kerrigan 9's bedrock, reinforced against everything from orbital bombardment to seismic activity. 30 years, Lyra said, looking at the construction. You built all this in 30 years? Not just me, hundreds of people, some born here, others who fled Dominion persecution and found their way to a world everyone thought was dead. We built it piece by piece, room by room, installation by installation. They reached an observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, Kerrigan 9's triple suns were setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful in a harsh way, the kind of beauty that demanded respect. There's something you need to know, Caldwell said. Something I should have told you sooner, but the timing never seemed right. What? When I found you in the desert, it wasn't an accident. I've been monitoring Dominion command channels for months, watching you specifically. When I intercepted your court-martial broadcast, I knew they'd come for you, tracked your pod's trajectory, was waiting when you crashed. Lyra turned to look at him. You used me. I saved you. There's a difference, but yes, we had hopes, plans. The resistance has been waiting 30 years for someone like you. An officer with enough rank to matter, enough principle to stand against orders, enough courage to broadcast the truth when it mattered most. You could have told me. Would you have believed me? Would you have trusted someone who admitted to manipulating you? He met her eyes. I gave you choices, Lyra. Every step of the way. I could have pressured you, made demands. Instead, I saved you, helped you, and let you decide who you wanted to be. That's not manipulation, that's opportunity. She wanted to be angry, should have been angry, but he was right. At every critical moment, he had given her information and let her choose. The broadcast, the crucible, everything. You took a gamble, she said. I took a calculated risk based on years of observation. I knew your character, your principles, your refusal to compromise on what mattered. I just gave you a platform to express those things in a way that would make the galaxy listen. Lyra looked back at the desert, at the world that had almost killed her and instead had forged her into something stronger. I'm still deciding if I should thank you or hit you. Caldwell smiled. Can I suggest thanking me? I'm down an arm and hitting me seems excessive. Despite everything, she laughed. It hurt her healing ribs, but it felt good. 3 months later, Lyra stood in the Galactic Council chambers, not as a prisoner, not as a defendant, as a commander. The peacekeeping force had grown to 3,000 officers, all volunteers from dozens of species. Human, Kesar, Telm, Oshara, mercantile compact traders, independent world militias, all united by a single principle, that genocide was unacceptable regardless of political convenience. They had investigated 14 extermination orders, brought charges against 47 Dominion officers, including 2 high executors and a council member, prevented 2 massacres in progress through rapid deployment and threat of exposure. The galaxy was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but changing. Valen had been stripped of his rank, imprisoned. His trial was ongoing, public, broadcast across the sector. Every atrocity, every order, every justification exposed to examination and found wanting. It would not undo the deaths he had authorized, but it would ensure they were not forgotten. And on Kerrigan 9, Caldwell was building something remarkable. Not just a military installation, but a colony. Families, schools, infrastructure. Proof that humans could survive and thrive even in the harshest environments when given a chance. Lyra's communicator chimed. Caldwell's frequency. Commander, just wanted to check in. How'd the council session go? Same as always, too much talking, not enough action. But we're making progress. The transparency protocols are being adopted by more governments. Even some Dominion colonies are demanding oversight of military operations. Progress is progress, even when it's slow. Through the council chamber's viewport, Lyra could see the stars. Somewhere out there, other people were facing the same choice she had faced. Orders versus conscience. Obedience versus principle. Safety versus integrity. Caldwell, do you ever regret it? The 30 years of preparation, the risk, everything you sacrificed. Every single day, he said honestly, but I'd do it again. Because the alternative was accepting that genocide was inevitable, that we were too small to matter, that one person couldn't make a difference. And you proved all of that wrong. We proved it wrong, together. Yeah, together. The transmission ended. Lyra walked to the viewing platform overlooking the council chambers. Representatives from 100 worlds debated below, arguing over policies and protocols in the future of galactic civilization. It was messy, imperfect, full of compromise and frustration. But it was progress. A young Kessler officer approached, saluting formally. Commander Voss, the peacekeeping force is assembled for your inspection. They're ready. Lyra returned the salute, looked at the officer, young, idealistic, exactly like she had been before the betrayal, before the desert, before everything changed. What's your name, officer? Lieutenant Keller, ma'am, 2nd Battalion Peacekeeping Division. Are you ready for this, Keller? This job will make you unpopular with your own people. You'll be enforcing principles that powerful individuals want to ignore. You'll face pressure to compromise, to look the other way, to follow orders even when those orders are wrong. The lieutenant's expression was serious, determined. I watched your trial broadcast, Commander. I saw what you did, what you sacrificed. If you can stand up to an entire empire, I can handle some political pressure. Lyra smiled. Good answer. Stay that way. Stay true to your principles even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. She followed the lieutenant to the Peacekeeping Force Assembly, 3,000 officers standing in perfect formation, representing dozens of worlds and cultures, all volunteers, all committed to the same impossible goal, making the galaxy a little less brutal, one prevented atrocity at a time. They saluted as she passed. She returned each salute, making eye contact when possible. These were her people now, not Dominion, not Kessar, not any single species or culture, people who had chosen principle over convenience. Later that evening, in her quarters, Lyra reviewed reports, investigation updates, deployment schedules, political complications. The work was endless, exhausting, critical. Her communicator chimed again, not Caldwell this time. Captain Reeves, Commander, I have information you need to see. It's about Lieutenant Hale. Lyra's blood went cold. Hale, the man who had betrayed her, who had shot her, who had documented her actions for 18 months in preparation for her court-martial. What about him? He's been discharged from Dominion service, facing trial for executing illegal orders. But Commander, he's requesting to testify, not in his own defense, against other officers. He wants to provide evidence about the command structure that authorized your extermination. Silence stretched. Lyra did not know what to feel. Anger, betrayal, curiosity, all of it mixed together. Why, she finally asked. According to his statement, watching what happened to you, seeing the galaxy's response to your broadcast, made him question everything he'd been taught. He's requesting to speak with you. Says he wants to apologize directly. Lyra closed her eyes, felt the weight of that request. Part of her wanted to refuse, wanted Hale to face the consequences without any absolution from her Aethra. But another part, the part that had spent 5 years filing reports trying to change the system from within, understood. People could change. Sometimes they just needed to see an example worth following. Tell him I'll meet with him, she said, after his testimony. After he's provided everything he knows about the command structure. Then we'll talk. Understood, Commander. The transmission ended. Lyra sat alone with her thoughts, with the understanding that justice was complicated, that people were complicated, that even betrayers could find their way to something better if they were willing to face what they had done. 6 months after the broadcast, Lyra returned to Carrigan 9. The colony had grown. Prefabricated structures rising from the desert like flowers after rain. Children playing in streets that had not existed a year ago. Ships coming and going, bringing supplies and new settlers and hope. Caldwell met her at the landing pad, his prosthetic arm fully integrated now, moving with the same confidence as his original limb. Welcome home, Commander. This isn't my home, I'm just visiting. Could be your home if you wanted. We could use someone with your skills. Lyra looked at the colony, at the future being built on a world everyone had written off as dead. I have a job to finish first, but maybe someday, when the peacekeeping force is stable enough to run without me. They walked through the colony together. Caldwell pointed out improvements, expansions, plans for the future, schools, medical facilities, agricultural domes, everything needed to sustain a permanent population. We're calling it New Haven, he said. The colony seemed appropriate. New Haven, Lyra repeated. I like it. They reached the memorial, a simple structure, names carved into metal. Everyone who had died in the resistance over 30 years. Everyone who had sacrificed for this moment. And at the bottom, a new section. Recent additions, the Reavers who had fallen in the bunker. Even enemies deserved to be remembered. Deserved acknowledgement that they had been people once, before they became weapons. You added the Reavers, Lyra said quietly. They were following orders, just like we all were at some point. They deserve better than being forgotten. Lyra touched the memorial, felt the weight of all those names, all those choices, all those consequences. What do you think happens now, she asked. Long term, do we win this? Do principles actually triumph over power? Caldwell was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, but I know we made it harder for power to operate without principles. We made silence more expensive than acknowledgement. We proved that one person can make a difference if they're willing to pay the price. That's not much of a guarantee. No, but it's more than we had before you crashed in that desert. They stood together as Carrigan 9's triple sun set, painting the world in shades of gold and hope. Two people who had survived something that should have destroyed them. Who had accomplished something that should have been impossible. Caldwell, Lyra said eventually, thank you for everything, for saving me, for giving me a choice, for standing with me when it mattered most. You saved yourself, Lyra. I just gave you tools and got out of the way. Everything else was you. She smiled. Then thank you for the tools and for being stubborn enough to believe one person could change things. We change things together. Never forget that. This isn't your victory or my victory. It's our victory. Humanity's victory. The galaxy's victory. Everyone who believes that conscience matters more than convenience. 1 year after the broadcast, Lyra stood in the memorial chamber on New Haven, the same place where she and Caldwell had talked a year ago. But now it was different. The names on the memorial had been joined by something else. A plaque. Simple words in 3 languages. They tried to erase her. Instead, they gave her a reason to fight. And when one person chooses principle over power, when one voice refuses to be silenced, the galaxy has no choice but to listen. Remember Commander Lyra Voss. Remember that silence is a choice, and so is courage. Caldwell stood beside her, reading the words. Too dramatic? He asked. Maybe a little, but accurate. The Colony Council voted to install it, wanted future generations to remember what happened here, why this place exists. Lyra touched the plaque, felt the weight of being a symbol, of being an example, of being remembered. I'm just one person, Caldwell. One officer who refused an order. That's all. That's everything. One person is all it takes to start something, to prove that resistance is possible, to show others that they're not alone. Her communicator chimed, urgent frequency, peacekeeping force emergency channel. Commander Voss, we have a situation. Dominion forces are massing near the Telm border. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to bypass Council oversight and execute extermination protocols on 3 refugee colonies. We need immediate deployment authorization. Lyra looked at Caldwell, at the memorial, at the colony built on survival and hope. Then she activated her command frequency. This is Commander Voss, authorized full deployment. All available peacekeeping units converge on Telin border. We move now, we move fast. And we make it clear that genocide has consequences. She closed the channel, turned to Caldwell. I have to go. I know. Go make them regret it. Always. She walked toward the landing pad where her ship waited, stopped, looked back. Caldwell, when this is over, when the peacekeeping force is stable, when the galaxy has learned that atrocities come with costs, I think I'd like to come back here, stay for a while, help build something instead of always fighting. Caldwell smiled. It was warm, genuine, full of hope. We'll save you a place, right here, where the desert meets the future. Lyra boarded her ship. The engines powered up. Through the viewport, she could see New Haven spreading across the desert that had once tried to kill her. Could see Caldwell standing at the memorial, watching her leave. They had tried to erase her, to make her disappear from history, to silence her questions and eliminate her dissent. They had failed. Because the desert had not killed her. It had forged her into exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone willing to stand between power and principle and refuse to move. Someone willing to broadcast truth no matter the cost. Someone who proved that one person could make a difference. The ship lifted off. Kerrigan 9 fell away below. But Lyra carried it with her, carried the memory of survival and sacrifice, carried the knowledge that she had been given a choice and had chosen correctly. She was Commander Lyra Voss, the officer who refused, who survived, who stood between extinction and innocence and said no with such conviction that empires had no choice but to listen. They had tried to erase her. Instead, they had made her legend, and the galaxy would never forget.